Hey guys, Bison Pair bringing you the War Within Alpha first look video. I was very privileged to get access to the War Within Alpha really quickly as part of the content creator kind of community. Anyway, we'll take a look at Frost Death Knight today. There won't be that many changes to announce. Essentially, it looks like all the talents we had from Dragonflight are the same. I don't think that's going to stay the same, but we'll see about that. However, we now have the hero talent trees that we can like try out and kind of feel in actual gameplay. Because that was obviously just on paper before, where we could theorize and think about, okay, how does this actually work? Well, now we can take that and take a look at what it works like in practice. So we'll take a look at Deathbringer, we'll take a look at Ride of the Apocalypse, talk about how they fit into the rotation, how they impact us, all those kind of things. Start out, Rider of the Apocalypse. I definitely like the theme of this. You can see I have some gameplay playing here in the background. Essentially, you have a probability of summoning one of these riders. They look pretty cool. They come in on their horse, and then they have some passive abilities that don't really impact the rotation. Overall, though, this tree does have some interesting synergies with Frost DK, especially with Breath Gosa, because it does ingest some resources. We have this Moorsworn Menace, reduces the cooldown on Horde of Winter by 15 seconds, so that goes from 45 to 30, which obviously would help with breath uptime. We also have this talent called a Feast of Souls. When you have 2 more horsemen active, your rune power spending ability 20% increased damage, obviously good for breath, but it also has a 10% chance to green thunder runes, so also some more resource injection there. And this also, obviously, it will happen, like when I played around, you did get 2 horsemen sometimes, but you're definitely guaranteed to get it with this Apocalypse now, which is when we use Frostworm. You get 4 horsemen to aid you for 20 seconds. This means that, well, with these talents, we're probably going to pick up Frostworm at absolute 0, so we have this on a night second cooldown, we can press that, gives you 4 horsemen, is going to give you some resources and that synergy. Hard to say at this point, is that worthwhile or not? I don't know, but it looks pretty cool. When playing Breath, generally, it's very similar to the current gameplay. Being on the alpha, being level 71 now, your secondary stats will be much lower, which means that it's much harder to keep it up for longer. However, all the tools we had available to us in Dragonflight to make infinite breath happen still exist, and we also have a bit more. So unless they change it drastically, I don't expect breath duration to go down anytime soon. Yeah, this is just a pre-ordered passive tree. Obviously, you have that little active element of pressing Frost and Fury, and then we get the horseman. But otherwise, all of this is kind of like, yeah. We also, unfortunately, on the Pale Horse ability, we can mount in combat. That doesn't work because I don't have access to the accurate depth charge on the alpha. So sadly, haven't been able to try that out. So sorry about that. I think one final note here. We have this ability called Nazgrim's Conquest. So when Nazgrim is up, it gives you strength buff, and that goes up every time an enemy die by 3%. I'm just imagining, so there can be some really cool synergies like in Mythic Plus. If you have stuff, if you remember Fall, you have those dragons with all the blobs. So imagine the scenario, you engage dragons, when the blob's about to die, you press Frost and Fury, that summons Nazgrim, and then it gives you absolute insane strength buff to carry into the dragon. Generally, we don't like things to happen on death of enemies, because when enemies die, that's kind of when we're done with the pack, so we would try to have the power at the start of the pack. But I can see this being really strong in very specific scenarios, so that's pretty cool. Alright, so that's kind of Rider Apocalypse. I don't see much synergy with Obliteration here. There's really nothing that, like, it's much more runic power based, and Obliteration doesn't spend a lot of runic power. It doesn't benefit from winter cooldown reduction. It doesn't, a Feast of Souls doesn't really work that well because we have loads of resources anyway. Yeah, that's kind of my impression here. Anyway, let's move on to Deathbringer. So this is the other tree that's what we share with the Blood DKs, and I think this is quite interesting. It does have some rotational impact to a much higher degree. It revolves around this Reaper's Mark ability, which is actually an extra button. So we get a new button. You press down on the target, right? Gives them a debuff where you stack up stacks over time when you deal let's see, shadow or frost damage, right? And there's lots of things here about shadow frost damage we'll talk about, but anyway, you press this, it goes on a debuff, and you hit the target, and then that stacks up to 40, and at 40 stacks, it explodes, and it deals an absolute insane amount of damage at the moment. I had it explode for around 400k non-crit, which is comparable to like an obliterate crit, which is like 80k. So it does a lot of damage. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really impactful button. It's a 1 minute cooldown by default, but it can be reduced to 30 seconds with a swift end talent. That's a choice node, so you can also pick up something else. But the idea here, I think, is to reduce to 30 seconds and then time it with every single pillar, so you get that big strength buff for the explosion. Essentially, that's what I envisage as the correct play. It might be a play with just press and cooling as well. We'll see, but it aligns pretty well with pillar windows. All right. So synergy here, I think this is an obliteration one for sure, because as I said, you can time your Reaper Spark with your obliteration window, every single one of them. So you get that big explosion towards the end. You also have this Dark Talents ability. This is actually an interesting one. So Ice Talons usually stacks up to 3 times. And that gives you, let's see, so Ice Talons gives 18% attack speed. But this essentially means that you will gain extra stacks over time. And that goes up to 5, and then you need to just keep that going. So essentially you have a chance every time you hit Killing Machine or Rhyme, you get an extra stack, goes to 5, and if it's at 5, it stays at 5 until it gets cancelled. So really buffs our attack speed, which gives you more Killing Machine procs, which is nice. I think the other thing to mention here is this Wave of Souls. It increases the Shadow Frost damage enemies take. But overall though, there actually isn't that much that synergizes with obliteration, to be fair. Like, it's not like this tree increases your oblit damage or something like that. So I actually think Bright Apocalypse is clearly Breath. I think Deathbringer is both, because Breath would also benefit from this, because pillar cooldown would be quite low. Pretty not as low, because you don't get those guaranteed crits, but still, it's pretty low. But yeah, there's no kind of like, oh, this is definitely going to be a Oblit, this is definitely a Breath. Playing with it, I will have some gameplay in the background, as always. You're pretty much guaranteed to hit 40 stacks really quickly. So, like Remorse Winter stacks it up, Frost Fever stacks it up. Frost Fever stacks it up even quicker due to this Blood Fever. Loads of things. Just means that you hit it, and sometimes it explodes in like 5 seconds. So it won't be any issue at all actually leveraging that properly. Now, when it comes to having it on a 1 minute versus 30 second cooldown, I'm not 100% sure. The thing is that on a 30 second cooldown, you will get lots more Reaper's Mark. You can choose this painful death, which means that essentially when you have Reaper's Mark, it explodes, you get a probability of getting a new one. And that increases the probability quite significantly. So it goes from, let's have a look. So it increases the probability by 50%. I'm not sure if that's flat 50% or if just exactly 50%, because usually it's a 30% chance and then increased by 50%. That could go up to 8% or 45%. However, it is never going to be 100%. To be fair though, now that I think about this, you have this effect where you have a Reaper's Mark, it explodes, you get a new one, and that could also explode and get you a new one, and so on. So it's actually not as simple as being, oh, getting it on a 30 second cooldown is going to be much better, because you can get these chains of Reaper's Mark, which is going to be loads of extra ones. I should have done the math on this, but I think it's probably going to be best just to go for the 1 minute cooldown and just use it with every pillar window. That's going to give you lots of value. Because the thing is, if you use a Reaper's Mark, you get a new one, that's not going to be within your pillar window, so it won't do as much damage. There are those kind of effects as well. Overall, I think Deathbringer is by far the most interesting, kind of exciting one, because you know, it's part of your rotation. You actually get a new ability that deals a ton of damage. That feels kind of impactful and nice. As I said, I think it's going to work well for both obliteration and breath in the current iteration. And that's kind of it. There's some weird things here. Like, I don't know what 50% increased chance means. It doesn't display that actually. And I don't know if you read Reaper's Mark, there's this thing where like Reaper's Mark travels to an unmarked enemy nearby if the target dies, or explodes below 35% health when there are no enemies to travel to. That is a really weird wording, and I couldn't figure out what that meant. Because I tried to hitting things with low health, and that didn't quite do anything. Hard to say. And it also double explodes, which I might just be stupid and can't figure out the ability that does that. But you get like 2 hits, one which is half the other. So that's another thing which I need to think about. Anyway, so that's the very first look at the Frosty K in the Wolverine Alpha. I'm excited for more changes. I hope they make changes to the talent tree so we get some mix up in our gameplay, that kind of thing. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you thought about this video. What do you think about the talent trees? How do you think they fit into our rotation? Does this make sense to you? All those kind of things. Upvote, downvote, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.